our rally this evening, we have George Galloway. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Comrades and friends, Hilary Benn's history was so deficient, Lindsay, I'm not sure that £20 worth of history books will do it. He told the House of Commons, looking across at the Conservative benches into the lobby with whom he was about to try and lead as many Labour members as possible, and he reminded them that the whole House had stood against Hitler and Mussolini. That's not the history I recall as it happens. The appeasers of Hitler and Mussolini were there in profusion on the Conservative benches, and many of them, including some in the palace itself, looked forward to a victory for Hitlerism. He prayed in aid the International Brigade as somehow being a Labour achievement. But Labour was against the International Brigades. The International Brigades were communists and Trotskyists and leftists and trade union leaders like Jack Jones. The official Labour policy was for non-intervention in the Spanish Civil War. And above all, he imagined that we had forgotten his own personal history as a man who voted for and went around the country and the TV studios arguing for the invasion of Iraq and its subsequent occupation, which produced ISIS in the first place, as even Tony Blair now at least partly acknowledges. He imagined that we'd forgotten that he had supported the NATO bombardment of Libya, which destroyed Libya and put ISIS in power in those parts of the country that Al-Qaeda are not in power in, destroying Libya as a state, destroying Iraq as a state, a kind of corpse that can be picked over by ISIS, by the Turkish government, which, as an earlier speaker, John Rees, I think, mentioned, has now been invaded today by the Turkish military, and a new axis of confrontation now exists between Iraq and Turkey. Who are we going to back in those circumstances? The regime in Iraq that we put into power on the point of our bayonets with our invasion and occupation, or our NATO ally, about whom more in a minute, Turkey. So we might be about to have a war between Iraq and Turkey, a war between half the world and Syria, and the other half of the world standing by Syria's side, as John put it, bringing us into the very real danger of a confrontation that could escalate into a world war. Don't underestimate it. No one imagined when the pistol shots ran out in Sarajevo that that would lead to a cataclysm of 4 bloody years in which an ocean of blood flowed in the First World War. Another piece of history Mr. Benn could usefully have been reminded of. I don't have much time, so I only have time to deal with a point which has been referred to before, but I'm in a position, a personal position, to comment, I hope, tellingly on it. As I was coming in here, it was on the BBC News that Simon Danczuk, the Labour MP for Rochdale, had been sent a death threat. John mentioned the horror stories of several Twitter feeds. I've been sent more death threats than any political figure in the whole of Britain, and I've reported them. And I've reported them to the Metropolitan Police, and never once did they make the BBC News. Never once was anybody arrested. In fact, the police tell me that they can't arrest anybody because Twitter won't give them. Who thought we lived in a police state? Twitter won't give them the identity of the holders of Twitter accounts. So I took that a little bit painfully, to be honest, that Dan Duke made the BBC News. But it's what he said next, without contradiction by the BBC. And he's repeating it on social media now. He blamed Jeremy Corbyn for the fact that he got a death threat. I mean, what have you got to do to get expelled out of the Labour Party? I really don't know. Standards must be slipping. Standards are definitely slipping. As many speakers have pointed out, they're trying to intimidate us, not the other way around. MPs who vote for war have the cheek to complain about irate emails or angry constituents. They've obviously never faced an angry foreman in a workplace if they think that being subjected to post-up notes on your office window constitutes bullying and intimidation. It's us that they're trying to intimidate. And in part, it has worked. In Walthamstow, the gigantic conspiracy, not just a lie. A picture is produced on a Facebook page opened by somebody who lives in Kent but was posting from Leeds. Shows a picture just before it's closed down, just hours after it was open. A picture of apparently angry Muslims outside the local MP's home, terrifying her children. She has no children. It wasn't her home. The Muslims weren't angry. They were going into the mosque. The picture was of the local mosque, Queen's Road Mosque in Walthamstow. Now I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I want to know who that guy was that opened that Facebook account and put that picture up, because that lie went around the world before the truth had got its boots on, but the truth boots are coming on now. And more of that later. I've only got 1 minute left. I just want to therefore close with this. If we allow ourselves to be intimidated out of doing our democratic duty, we will have betrayed, as John put it, the levellers, the Chartists, the Tolpuddle martyrs, the pioneers, the suffragettes, the people who did fight for Spain, the people who agitated for confrontation with Hitler and Mussolini. We would be betraying them if we did not continue our work. They are trying as part of their regime change project to separate Jeremy Corbyn from the Stop the War movement, to separate Jeremy Corbyn from Ken Livingstone, from John McDonnell, from Momentum, so that he'll cut his roots and cut the sinews of those of us who love him and wish him well, so that when they come for him, there's nobody left to protest. We are the protesters, and we are going on and on